Welcome to this walk through Philippians 2, verses 28 to 30. We now finish the section about Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus is from Philippi, went to be an assistant of Paul on behalf of the Philippians, came close to death in an illness, and Paul was rejoicing that God spared him and prevented Paul from having grief upon grief, but Epaphroditus is very upset, concerned that the Philippians were concerned for him. So that's where we pick it up here in verse 28. So our passage has two sentences. First one, spudai auteros un epempsa auton, hina idontes auton palin carete, kago alupateros o. So our un there, therefore, for this reason, spudai auteros. Fun word. You see the ter in here. That's the morpheme for comparative, teros on, adjective ending. But here it doesn't have an adjective ending, it has an adverbial ending. So the adjective form for the comparative has been turned into an adverb. Spude is a noun meaning haste or speed or diligence. And so putting that together with the comparative and the adverb, you get something like, with all the more sense of urgency. That's how the Concise Danker lexicon takes it. And then our verb, epempsa, you see a hidden sigma there, so we simply have an aorist indicative from pempo. I sent him. Epistolary aorist, this is from the point of view of the receivers of the letter later. Paul is yet to send him. He'll probably be sending this letter with Epaphroditus. So for this reason, with all the more sense of urgency, I sent him. Hina, so that, here purpose clause. Then we have this participle in the nominative plural, as you see. The stem id from horao. Seeing him again, or having seen him again, or when you see him again, or because you see him again, charete, you rejoice, so that you might rejoice, having seen him again, or because you see him again. So charete here from chairo, aorist subjunctive, and you expect the subjunctive after hina. Kago, crassus for kai and ego coming together, and I, alupoteros. Lupe means grief or sorrow. You used that in the previous verse, grief upon grief. But here with the alpha privative, so that he might be without the grief. And again we see the ter morpheme in here for the comparative adjective. And lupe, as we've seen, means sorrow, grief, or anxiety. So the alpha privative on here would mean more free from sorrow, or grief, or anxiety. In other words, less anxious, less sorrowful. And then o is the subjunctive of a me, first person singular. So we have a hina clause here with two subjunctives. We can see that laid out here in the map, the hina modifying epempsa, and then the two subjunctives, the hareta here and the o. So that you might rejoice seeing him again, and I might be less anxious, less sorrowful. Then we have our next sentence, and I'll just begin with the first verse of this. Prosdecheste un auton in curio, metapases charas, caetus toiutus intimus echete. Okay, we'll just take that much. Prosdecheste, from prosdechomai, middle preference verb, receive. It's one of those words that the very meaning of it has the idea of reciprocity, where you need two parties to complete the meaning of the verb. So those are often middle preference, or deponent if you want to call it that. So receive, therefore receive him in the Lord. And we've seen a lot of these references to being in Christ and in the Lord. The whole letter is commending that. And so receive him in the Lord with all joy. Again, a major theme in this letter, the joy. Kai tous toiutus. Now, toiutos, just hutos haute tuto with a tau omicron iota on the front of it, meaning such a kind, of such a kind. And here with the article, used substantively, so people like this. There's one way to translate that. And then intimus, honored, echete, have or hold. Here, the imperative, although this form could also be indicative as usual in the present tense for the second plurals. So hold such people, people like this, honored. So what we have is one of those double accusative constructions. This is the double accusative of object and complement. So hold such people to be honored, or as honored. Then we get a haughty clause, giving us a causal clause, because. So haughty dia ta ergon Christou mechri thanatu engisen parabalusomenos te psuche. Hina anaplevrose ta humon hysterema tes prosme liturgias. Because for the sake of the work of Christ, or because of the work of Christ, near death, he came close. He drew near. So several things to look at just that far. Because he drew near is our main verb. So again, the map might help clarify this. Here's our main verb, engisen, to draw near from engidzo, to draw near, come close to, used either of time or space. Here I think it's used metaphorically in a spatial sense, he's drawing near to death. Because, and so the first thing we have, number one, dia ta ergon Christou, because of the work of Christ. That's somewhat of an emphatic position to put that prepositional phrase. Close to death, near death. Mechri means until, or as far as, or to the point of. So to the point of death he drew near. And then we get that further described by this participle, parabalusomenos, te psuche. Parabaluomai means to expose oneself to danger, risk one's life. And again, a middle preference verb or deponent verb, parabulamai. Here the idea would be reflexivity. Again, using Neva Miller's categories in her article on the middle preference verbs that I've referred to in the past. And so here the verbal concept inheres in the subject is the way she describes the verbs that have this built-in reflexivity. And you even see that in the glosses I just gave. To expose oneself to danger, risk one's life. So what kind of participle is this? It's obviously a nominative, singular, middle, because it's middle preference verb to begin with, an aorist, the sigma alpha in there. Hellerman, in his EGGNT volume, takes this as modal, saying how Epaphroditus came close to death by risking his life. And psyche here means life in general, not just the interior core of a person. And so, risking his life, Varner in the Baylor series, Baylor Handbook takes this as means. It seems to me it's also simply possible to be simply a temporal use or a causal use. Both of those seem to make sense. In other words, he drew near to death having risked his life, or because he risked his life. Hina, so that. And here's the purpose of the risking of his life. Hina anaplevrose, he might complete or fill up, make complete the subjunctive, and then the aorist subjunctive. So he might complete ta humon hysterema, the lacking of you, of service towards me. And so how do we put that together? Well, I think the humon here is a subjective genitive going with the hysterema. Hysterema, that which is lacking. Hystereo means to come late. and then used more metaphorically from that to come short of, to fail, to be in want of, to be lacking, taking those from Abbott Smith's lexicon. And so they're the ones who are doing the lacking. That's why I'm taking that humon as the subjective genitive. And then the tes liturgias would be the objective genitive. It's what the lacking is with reference to here. That they're lacking with regard to service, in their service towards Paul. And so we got a subjective genitive and an objective genitive, going with the hysterema, which is a verbal noun, to lack. And a number of the commentaries, and Hellerman, as he collects them as well, point out that the idea here is not that the Philippians were lacking in their service in terms of what they were doing. The lack is simply the congregation's presence and their desire to assist Paul. In other words, they can't be with him as a whole. And so Epaphroditus is their delegated representative. We saw some language about that in our earlier verses, a few in the previous passage, and we have it again here in this liturgias. In other words, a recognized form of service. He's not just there on his own. Epaphroditus is there as a representative of the Philippian church, serving in their behalf the Apostle Paul. A number of lexicons and commentaries note the parallel over in 1 Corinthians 16:17, the same construction, where Paul says, I'm delighted to have Stephanas, Fortunatus, and Achaicus present, because these men have made up for your absence. So that same kind of idea with the same kind of language, I think confirms what is going on here. That was reading from the Christian Standard Bible. So that's an overview of some of the features here in the Greek on a very basic level. And again, notice the parallels with the Christ hymn at the beginning of this chapter, and especially this expression here, mechri thanatu, which is paralleled back in chapter 2, verse 8 regarding Jesus, where Paul says that Jesus humbled himself to the point of death, even death on a cross. So he became obedient unto death, mechri thanatu. And so the parallel here, and the whole vision of self-sacrificing servanthood, the mind of Christ that is expressed here in Epaphroditus. And we saw it also in Timothy, we also saw it in Paul. And that's why Paul says we should hold such people to be honored. Not because of the reasons for honor in the Roman Empire or in American society for that matter, at least increasingly, but because of the vision of reality that we see in Jesus, especially in the Christ hymn.